What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Altitude Show. I'm your host, Dave Brinker. Today we have Brian Barney on the podcast. For those that don't know who that is, Brian Barney is probably one of the most successful and consistent bow hunters out west that there is, period. He's also an extraordinary shot with his bow. Amazing dude. He is the host of the Eastmans Elevated Podcast. He's a successful business owner. I've been on his show a few times. We always have really interesting conversations about bow hunting, but also just about life. This episode is no different. Thank you for listening. While you're at it, also go out and support our sponsors, GoHunt.com, OutdoorClass.com, PeaksEquipment.com. Thank you so much for all your support. There's many more episodes coming your way. Have a great day. The Altitude Show is brought to you by Peaks Equipment, the world's leading technical, hard goods, and accessories brand for backcountry enthusiasts. From trekking poles to headlamps to best-in-class gaiters, Peaks delivers a system of products that work to achieve optimal performance in the harshest conditions. Don't suffer on your hunting adventures. Peaks enables you to thrive on the mountain when everyone else is going home. Visit peaksequipment.com and use code ALTITUDE for 10% off today. That's ALTITUDE for 10% off on peaksequipment.com. Outdoor Class is the new source of premium outdoor education from trusted and knowledgeable experts. For hunters committed to improving their skills, Outdoor Class is the only subscription-based e-learning platform that provides unlimited access to video lessons from the world's most respected experts. Learn from industry leaders like Corey Jacobson, Randy Newberg, Remy Warren, and other experts across all the topics that affect you as a hunter. Make sure to follow Outdoor Class Official on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and take your game to the next level by going to outdoorclass.com. You can use code ALTITUDE at checkout for 20% off. That is ALTITUDE at checkout for 20% off at outdoorclass.com. Mr. Brian Barney, welcome, sir.
Oh, thanks for having me. I hope I can live up to the intro, but I appreciate you having me on, man. The studio looks great.
Thank you, man. I'm just trying to live up to your status, man.
I don't know about that. I love the guitars in the background too, and the theme like around altitude.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, altitude has become an important word in my life. It's my most popular song and most meaningful song that I've written. And so, yeah, it was an easy title to come up with for the show, and I'm glad people like it. I've gotten a lot of compliments. I wish I could say my studio was like totally my idea. It's mostly my little brother who helps me on all my businesses. He helped me with it, and he made it look amazing. So I'm super stoked with it, man. I mean, it's got everything besides my if I had my family standing here, it has everything I care about, like hunting and the mountains and music and my friends on the podcast. I love this space. It's funny how like productive you are, or like how good you feel when you have a space that you like being in.
Yeah, I think I need to overhaul my space as well. I've got a good main room that I do live recordings in when I have buddies over. But this is my office. I've got plans that are thrown around everywhere and calculations, papers. Like you can't see the overall picture here. It might scare you if I did a panoramic of all my work for the week. You know, I'll have to clean up here.
It would scare you if I did a panoramic. The studio doesn't all look this sleek. Trust me. My friend walked in here the other day who's a non-hunter, and he doesn't care, but he's like, man, this is like a room of death. There's a lot of heads and stuff. There's probably too much taxidermy in here, but we only keep a couple. Actually, right now we have no heads in the house, so like they all come out here. So this is where I throw, and then I got papers and computers and bows and arrows and all the things. This is kind of the man cave, but I definitely made this space look clean.
Oh, it looks good. You're doing good. Yeah.
Thanks, man.
It's a good front. Yeah. Well, this is a little weird, like being on your podcast. Most of the time I have you on my podcast, and you've been legendary on my podcast, man. We've had some of the best conversations and really good in-depth conversations about hunting, but also about life and about happiness, about our work. Man, we just had some great conversations. So I'm really happy you invited me to be on your podcast.
Yeah, dude, I've been excited to have you on. Like, I've been like I said, and as everybody knows, this is a new venture for me, but it's funny when I was thinking about doing this, I'm like, well, I've already been doing podcasts for, I don't know, I probably start like with other people for 8 or 9 years. I don't know. I feel like I've been on quite a few of them and yours. And there's some you're on where you're like, man, that was easy. Like that was just like sitting down and have a beer with a buddy and just bullshitting with no distractions. And so you've been one of those humans. And the reason I appreciate always talking to you too, like you said, is obviously we could talk for hours about hunting, but most of the time it goes much beyond that. And that's kind of what I'm trying to bring out in this podcast is we talk, like this morning I had Lampers on, right? And obviously I'd say 3/4 of the podcast we talked about hunting, but man, I had Will Primos on the other day and we talked for 2 hours and not one time did we talk about hunting. And I loved it. And he did too. Because the reality is we're all, you know, a lot of us or a lot of people that I'm friends with are hunters, but also we're humans and we have normal lives. We have businesses. We have other challenges to talk about other than how to kill a big bull, right? But we're obviously passionate about that too. But I think one of the things that we've dove into before that I thought was really interesting is, and more people need to hear about it, is the fact that you have set up your life. You have I mean, I guess you could call it a normal job and a business that you own that enables you to do the things that you do in this other world. Like, I imagine, Brian, you're like most people where people probably call you or message you. They're like, dude, what do you do? All you do is hunt? Whoa, it must be nice, you know? And you're like, no, dude, you know, we'll go into it, but I own a business. I'm running every day. And by the way, I have a family and kids that I'm supportive of and I try to be there for. Like, no, I don't just hunt and I don't just podcast. I have figured out a way to work that into my life and set it up to make it a big part of it. But no, and I think that's a common myth, I guess you could say, with people like you, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's years in the making, and I'm so many years into my journey, and that's exactly that's exactly right. Is I've structured my whole life around the things that I love to do, and I'm one of the lucky ones that I found my passion early. I found what I was driven to be, and I felt like my purpose. And for me, it was backcountry bow hunting. I just love it. Like throughout the day. It encompasses more of my thought process than it probably should. Like I spend a lot of time thinking about it, but I just love it, and not for monetary benefits, just for my own soul, for my own sense of adventure. And so I found that early on, and I just committed myself to it. And so I've laid out my life that way, and I've laid out my life as far as my relationship with my wife. And you know, the first thing I did is I sat her down when we got together and I said, hey, I've had a lot of relationships fall through. Like, we're coming into hunting season. This is really important to me. And I'm able to have this back and forth and be honest with her and tell her what it means to me. And then we're able to work together to, you know, she really supports my passion. And then, you know, in turn, like that means that I have to be better when I am home. You know, I have to chip in and do the dishes. I have to chip in and help around the house. But not only that, like being present with my family, like really laughing and engaging with them, really enjoying my time, being the best husband I can. Because it does me no good in life, or at least at this point where I'm at in life, it does me no good to be the best backcountry hunter and not be a good husband, or not be a good father, or not be good at construction or doing what I'm saying I'm going to do. So through hunting has been able to give me this perspective on the rest of my life where I'm trying to improve every facet at it. But yeah, I have absolutely committed my life to spending as much time adventuring and doing what I love to do as I can. And a lot of people don't see that in the early years of the journey, being a weekend warrior, or, you know, out there running when nobody's watching, shooting my bow when nobody's watching every single day to improve all these skill sets to give myself a chance at success and more enjoyment in the backcountry when I'm back there. So that's absolutely right, David.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's always the case. I mean, people see the highlight reel sort of, but it's not easy, that balancing act you're talking about. You know, at what point, like I don't think we've ever really talked a lot about how you got to where you are, but at what point did you start making life decisions to get where you are right now, like consciously, right? Like you probably found out about your passion for bow hunting some time ago. Did you look in the mirror and go, okay, I got to figure out a way to structure this because not every woman's gonna want to be around me, right? I got to find the right one. And then also, what business can I get into to someday kind of have it running itself in a sense, but enough to where I can go somewhere and not be stressed out the whole trip? Like, when did you start thinking about that stuff?
So it's been a progression. It's been something that I just continue to adapt and evolve as I go. And I definitely get better at being able to wrap my mind around things and wrap my mind around goals and what I want and what I want to do, and then set micro goals that get to that macro goal that I'm trying to reach. And so it's been an improvement over the years, and it's almost like I have to make every mistake before I can do it right. Like I've got to go through a hunting season and be stressed out and have too much work and realize that this work and this money, having an extra zero in my bank account isn't what makes me happy. I'd rather take less work and have more freedom. Or with my partner, like I take a lot of responsibility in the business, and just sitting them down and going, what's really important to me? Like I'll take all the clients, I'll take the majority of the workload throughout the year. But when it gets to fall, this is my time where I really want to go for it hard. So I'm going to count on you to be there for me and to cover these things. And like I say, it's been a progression. Like when I first started, it was almost like I was sneaking out of the job site. Like I wouldn't tell anybody I was going to be gone and hope nobody noticed and hope everything was taken care of. Where now when I sit down to do a job and I'm going to be working through a September, I let my clients know up front and say, we're going to be here your entire job, but I'm going to have a project manager that's going to be here. I'm going to have somebody that you can contact, and I'm not going to be easy to get a hold of this time of year. I'll take care of everything before I leave and try to be in front of it. But this is the way it's going to be. This is the only way it's going to work, and the only way that I'm going to do your job. So it's just been a progression in my life to figure out what's really important to me, and then make sure I structure my life around that, my family, workload. And then, as I love hunting with every fiber of my being, like I really wanted to share that with guys. And I felt like, I overthink everything. And I just got into the industry on pure will. Like I used to read Eastman magazines when Cameron Haynes was the editor. I used to run to my mailbox to read those magazines. At that point in time, I was trying to collect as much information about backcountry hunting, reading books, reading articles, reading magazines, watching videos, like anything I could do to improve my game or improve my knowledge. And that also includes, the working out, the scouting, the shooting, all that stuff that goes along with it. But I was so in love by it. And I just wanted to share some of my ideas that I was learning on public ground, on do it yourself, and some of the adventures I was having. I wanted to share that. And so I never paid attention in high school. I just kind of got by, and I was really into, like, my passion in high school was wrestling. High school wrestling was everything to me. I wrestled freestyle, Greco, collegiate. I practiced nonstop, and I learned those lessons about the harder I worked, the more I could achieve. And I was, after wrestling, like I needed a place for my passion, and my family had introduced me into hunting, and I enjoyed it and introduced me into bow hunting. But that's where I really went headfirst into it and started putting all my effort into it. But when I went to share my story, I didn't pay enough attention in English class to be able to articulate my thoughts down on a piece of paper to excite somebody. And so it's something that now I care about, or at that time I cared about, I wanted to be better at. And it's anything in life. It's like the more you do it, the more you care about it, the better you get. So all of a sudden, where I didn't care about writing in English and typing or even speaking or a conversationalist, like to go down the road of a podcaster. But at that time, I really put all my effort into improving my writing. And so I could speak that passion. I could let it pour out on the pages. And so it's just something I've worked at. And same thing with the podcast, which is why I think you're the perfect podcaster, Dave. It's like, You're such a great conversationalist, and you are so engaged in every conversation that you have. And that's not just with me. Like, I can look from afar and watch you having a conversation with somebody and watch you really engaged in asking questions to that person and really having genuine interest in what they're saying and what they're talking about. It's why I think podcasting is just the perfect fit for you. But that's kind of how it started. So it wasn't an aha moment. It's been this evolution over the years.
That work ethic, by the way, thank you. I appreciate that. My wife would love to hear that. Can you tell her that?
Yeah, I'll send her a text.
That work ethic that you learn in wrestlers have a different work ethic out of all the sports that I've seen people go through. My little brother was a wrestler. It's one of my biggest regrets for my young life is I didn't wrestle. I wish I would have, because I'm a big fan. I think it's just the discipline and the hard work and the sweat and the grime and the pain. Like, I think it's good for you. I think, and I've many successful people I've met have been wrestlers, and because you can transfer that, and obviously you're not going to be a wrestler your whole life unless you're like an Olympian. But even those guys, eventually you can't do it anymore. But you can transfer those skill sets over to your career, over to whatever your hobby is. In your case, it ended up being bow hunting, right? Mm-hmm. But I had a couple questions based on what you just said. One of the things you said is you would trade freedom for zeros in your bank account. I love that, man. Like, I struggle with it just like everybody else. Like, you want to make more money, all that's more. And I've often thought, like, because there's been moments I've been broke and there's been moments I've been comfortable. I've never been rich, but I've had both those moments, right? And in the moments I'm broke, all I want is more money. But in the moments I'm comfortable, I'm like, I start thinking about it just because I'm curious. Is like, I wonder what it'd feel like to have another zero or another 2 zeros, another 3 zeros. But then I start thinking that forward, and obviously I'm not against it. I'm for it, right? But I have a reason for that, which I'll get to. But I start thinking about it, and I'm like, but it wouldn't feel any different necessarily, especially if you don't use it as a tool. Like, if I have that ability and when I have that ability, I want to just continue to enrich myself with experiences, right? I look at money as a tool to provide you and your family experiences and some level of security, however much money can give you security. But in your case, like, you're like in construction, you can make a lot of money in construction, right? Some of the most wealthy people I've ever met have owned construction companies. I mean, go to SCI and walk around that show and talk to the people buying $70,000 sheep hunts and ask them what they do. And over 50% of them own construction companies, I bet. And so, but you've kind of decided, yeah, I could do that, but I would rather just take the right amount of work, do a great job for my clients, make good money, but I'm much more interested in enriching myself with experiences. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's a tough decision to make because we all want more zeros or we want more money. But you're right. Like, once you get comfortable, and I've been the same place where I went through the 2008 crash. My business wasn't to a good place. All I ever knew was value of places went up. And so, I was a bit overinvested. And I mean, I had to sell absolutely everything I had to hold on to the property and to the houses that I had. And it was really stressful. I didn't have the money to put gas in my rig. I didn't know where the next, how I was going to pay the next bill for my truck or for my house or for whatever it is. And so I've been in that place as well. And I never want to get back to that place. Like, I like being financially secure. But for me, like, it doesn't change much. 10,000 in the bank, 50,000 in the bank, 100,000 in the bank, 200,000 in the bank. It doesn't change my day to day. It doesn't change my interaction with my family. It doesn't change. Like, as long as my bills are paid, I'm pretty happy. And I'm always looking to the future, and I'm looking to make sound investments and definitely looking to be financially secure. But yeah, I just figured out like this working and grinding and doing 7 days a week in something, I enjoy construction. I don't love it like I love bow hunting. So to spend all this time doing it, and then the stress load that came with it, and then to have to go through a hunting season and not be able to get away, not be able to go on these adventures, like that was the turning point for me where I started looking at things different. That time is my most valuable commodity, not money. Like, I'm able to work hard, and I've been fortunate to have this business, make some in the outdoor industry. But to me, it's not the dollar that makes me happy. And two, I'm a blue collar guy. I don't need to go hunt sheep up in Alaska. I don't need to go to Africa and go hunt 10 species. I don't need to do these big ticket items. I've found like these blue collar adventures that are throughout the West where I can do 10 high country mule deer hunts for the price of one sheep hunt, or even 20 high country mule deer hunts. So I just started to look at things different and go, man, there's all these great adventures that I can do for under $1,000, for under $2,000, under 3,000. I can go to New Zealand and go hunt, Himalayan tar and go hunt fallow. And like, there's all these really cool things to do on a blue collar budget. And I try to live my life that way, like not only my hunting, but also like keeping my outgo down, keeping the money that I make, not putting myself into a bunch of debt, like having all my debt paid down, my house nearly paid for, truck paid off. Like I don't have a lot of bills that come in. So all the money that I make goes into my account. And then if I'm a little slow during hunting season, I'll pay a bill or I'll fill my gas tank out of that and I'm fine. But yeah, I definitely found that time is the one thing that I can't get back. And we've got one chance at this life. And I want to spend as much time doing the things I enjoy, spending time with my family, fly fishing the rivers, backcountry bow hunting, along with taking care of my responsibilities and providing for my family, but trying to find that right balance, it seems like, for me.
Why? I admire the fact, because I'm now in the same place, that you make your money in a different, it'd be really easy for you to get a job in the hunting industry, obviously. Like you could get a job in the hunting industry tomorrow, but you've decided consciously to keep your construction business. You run the Elevated Podcast for Eastmans, and you're the host, and you're involved in other stuff too. I'm just curious, because oftentimes people look at people that work in this industry or in the hunting industry, and they're like, well, yeah, that must be nice. I can't do that. I work in construction. It's like, well, that might be true depending on your circumstances, but there is a world in which you can do both. You can have these outlets, these extracurricular. God, it's Friday evening, guys. I
would have helped you with it, but I was afraid I was going to mess it up too.
I really haven't. I have not had a glass of wine yet. I will after this, but I have not had one yet. But you know what I'm saying. So yes. So for a long time, I was in the boat of I was 150% working in the hunting industry. Doesn't even really matter what industry you're in, the fashion industry, the fishing industry, whatever. There's people that are in it, and there's people that are kind of straddling both worlds, and there's people that are completely out of it. But the point is there is a world that you can set up through hard work and some patience and some time and some forethought, where you can actually live a life like you are, Brian, where you make a good living to the point where it allows you to do these other things and then take off in the fall. And it's not like you're going for 2 or 3 days. Like you're doing serious trips where you're off the grid and you can focus on those things. And it's not like you're not stressed out about normal life things. You still have problems, but you've managed to minimize that. And I think that's pretty cool. But what has made you decide to sort of straddle that line and not go all in on the hunting industry?
Yeah, it's definitely been tough. It's always been a dream to be in the outdoor industry, and really, I'm to the point now where I could do that if I wanted. But it's it's tough. I've worked so long and built my reputation in construction, and I'm good at it. I know how to run these job sites. I know how to build quality homes. I know how to interact back and forth with the clients. So I've kind of like, that's been my only way to make money. And I started the hunting thing because I loved it and it was a passion, and that turned into a side hustle. And these side hustles we can work on in our free time. It doesn't feel like work because I love I love backcountry bow hunting. So anytime I'm writing about it, anytime I'm recording podcasts or I'm filming, it just doesn't feel like work. And so I can do that in my free time and have it be a side hustle. And at first it was like, well, this will pay for my hunting gear. And then it was like, well, this can pay for my hunting trips. So if I do this writing throughout the off season, this side hustle, I can put it in a hunting account, and then I can use this to go on more adventures. I can do more adventures per year. And so it made sense that way, but I've just continued working at it and reinvesting in myself. And in the hunting industry, I mean, it's kind of like wanting to be a movie star. It's not many people can hunt for a living, but it's one of those things that you keep reinvesting in yourself and you just build it brick by brick, and nothing in life comes instant. Everything is gradual and it takes time. Brick by brick, mortar by mortar, you build something and then you really create something like what I have, with the podcast and with the outdoor industry stuff, where, now I've got something that's real tangible, that could be a career if I wanted it. And for me, it's been good because I've been able to balance it. As the hunting stuff takes off more, I'm able to do less in construction. I've got a great lead carpenter that's been with me 10 years. I've got my dad as my partner in there, which is, we've been partners now for 20 years, and he's really let me take the lead through this construction company and really learn my way through it. But through that, like, I have the support of him through hunting season that, he's my biggest fan. And like, when I tell him I've got a hunt coming up, he says, don't worry about it. Don't stress. I'll take care of everything. Give him my number. I'll get the lumber there. I'll go work with the guys. I'll make it happen. And so, like, I built this great support system. And when you build a support system, it's just not these people that are bending over backwards for me. It's also me bending over backwards for them, giving them a good job, giving them, creating good opportunities through the business, like really being like, to have a good hunting partner, you have to be a good hunting partner. To have good business partners and people you can count on, you have to be a good business partner. And so, like, I really try to practice through my actions and what I say and how I take care of the guys, and really not trying to keep all the wealth for myself, like trying to pass it around for the guys that work really hard for me and work through the winter months, and really try to keep those guys busy. And so, like, I think it's just kind of the way I go about it. And so, like, it's tough for me to straddle that line, but construction has always been such a great way for me to make a living, support my family, and to be able to go on all these great adventures. And so, like we started talking about, I've just structured my life around this thing that I love to do. And so everything in my life is working for me, not against me, for enjoying my time afield. And so that's kind of where I've been able to straddle that line.
What's your advice for the guys out there and ladies too, that they're working, they have a job, they have a great job, they actually like their job, or maybe they don't like their job, but it provides for their family, but they would love a side hustle just to energize them, whatever it might be. How do you even start that?
I think it starts with passion, with something you love to do. Then it comes easy, but it's just putting in the time and putting in the effort and building something. Like my daughter, she's 18. She's going to go to college next year. She's a great kid, hard worker, plays volleyball and things. She loves shoes. So she's constantly getting shoes for volleyball or for basketball or for this or that. Well, all of a sudden she's fine. Now, let me see if I can get this straight. So she's gone on Postmart, and all of a sudden she can find shoes for cheap that are used shoes. She's also like really artistic. She paints pictures that are hanging in the house. I don't think I have any hanging in here right now, but one in the hallway. So she's really artistic and paints things. All of a sudden she's able to get these shoes and she's able to paint these different designs, and she's done custom Scooby-Doo shoes, and she's done all these wild paint colors. She knows shoes inside and out because it's her passion. Like, she knows which shoes are worth more and which shoes are worth less. And this all just started out of a love for shoes, but now she's rolling over those shoes on Postmart, where she's buying them cheap. She's painting them, putting them back up for sale. And I think she's making, like, she has a job too. She works down at Shedhorn Sports down there, but I think she's making more from her shoes than she is from her job as an 18-year-old kid. And it's really going to help her get through college. And this is just a side hustle that she came up with. And I love entrepreneurship, and I'm always trying to talk to my kids about it. And it's tough to come up with the $1 million idea. So my advice is to figure out what you love in life, figure out what your interests are, figure out what you're passionate about, and then trying to build something around that. And a lot of times you have to reinvest in yourself. I wrote for free for the first couple years. I filmed for free for the first 3 years. I did this podcast for free for the first couple years. Like everything I've done, I just consider that time as I'm investing in myself and investing in my future. And I'm willing to do that work to create something bigger in the end.
You've said that a few times, reinvest in yourself. It's really hard as a business owner, or even if you have a side hustle, you're working a 9 to 5 and like you figure out a way to make $500 here, $500 there. It's much easier to spend it, right? Than it is to go, yeah, but what if I put this $500 and I bought, if I'm trying to start a podcast, for example, what if I took that $500, bought a new microphone? What if I, kept making my product better and just kind of delayed gratification? That's hard to do. Reinvesting in business, I struggle with it for sure. Like, it's really easy to spend money. I went to a gun shop today. I bought a rifle for my son because bear season starts in a couple weeks in Oregon. And I was looking at all the pistols. And there was like 10 of them I wanted to buy. I don't even know why. I don't even need them. And I could probably buy a couple of them if I wanted to. But I kind of restrained myself. I'm like, what do I actually need this for, other than it's kind of a dopamine hit to buy a new gun? But it's probably going to go sit in my cabinet, and I already have a couple pistols. I don't need another one. Like, really, that guitar right here, this one right here, this one, I got that as a wedding gift from my wife, 13 years ago? Those two guitars you're looking at are the only two guitars that I own. I'm probably the only musician out there that loves music, and I have a piano over here. Or a keyboard. But I go into guitar shops and I'm like, yeah, I could buy a new guitar, but why? That one works just fine, But I'm sidetracked. But the point is like that reinvesting and kind of delaying your gratification forward, especially if you're like, you want it so bad. If you just keep pushing it forward, it just balloons, and it's like a snowball. It keeps getting bigger and bigger. And then someday you'll be like, okay, now I can actually indulge a little bit here, I can pay for that extra hunting trip to New Zealand, or I can, whatever the thing might be, right?
Yeah, compounding interest. Yeah, that's exactly right. And when you keep reinvesting in yourself and in your cause and you believe in it, eventually it snowballs, like you say, and you can grow it into something real and tangible. And then you can get that guitar if you want it. But I'm cheap as well. Like I don't keep any debt. I keep all my own money, and it is tough to get me to spend money. Like if it's not on my family, it's tough to go out and buy something. But I learned a long time ago, like it was more important to have money to go have experiences, have money to go put gas in my gas tank, have money to be able to be off work and not stressed about making a bill. Have that money was more important than having all the best hunting gear in the world. And really, hunting doesn't come down to your gear. Like, sure, it helps and it definitely benefits and you enjoy it more. But when it comes down to it, it's really hunting skill at the base of it. And so like I had 1 year, it was a long time ago, 20 years ago, where I made a big Cabela's purchase and then couldn't put gas in my truck to get out to go hunting. And like, that didn't make sense to me. And so I live my life that way, where I talk myself out of those purchases nonstop and save my money to go have these experiences and these adventures. So I think it is important not to get yourself in this debt load or in this revolving cycle, having to make so much just to survive, just to make bare minimum. And it's tough in today's day and age. It costs so much to live. You know it, I know it. And you definitely, like, as you get older, you get in a better financial financial position, or at least you'd hope so. That's the goal. But I definitely know, like in my 20s and in my 30s, like, man, I would use my gear again, or I'd use a bow for 5-6 seasons and build a relationship with it, even longer, 7-8 seasons, build a relationship with it. And I was better with that bow than the newest bow out there, just because I worked with it a bunch and I knew it inside and out. And so, like, a lot of this stuff we talk about in hunting, it's almost a way of life. And so like how I I can compare so many things to my hunting and the way I think about it to the way I think about life. It mimics it or reflects it, you know?
Absolutely. Lampers and I were talking about that today, about if you can become a proficient hunter and then transfer those skill sets over to life, it makes life a little bit easier, because hunting is so full of all life's lessons. And I think most sports are, you know, if I think about, like, I used to be a golfer. I still am a golfer. Golf is very similar in the sense, in a lot of ways, and like, talk about an endeavor that's like the most frustrating, expensive, demeaning, like unmasterable thing that you'll ever try, right? But you can take a lot of lessons from golf. I think it's a good sport for kids, just like, not for the same reasons, but just like wrestling, in terms of just kind of being humbled and learning how to cope with that, and learning how to cope with failure, and having vision and creativity, and learning how to get through challenges that you did not expect, like weather, or falling down and breaking a leg, or missing, or wounding, or whatever the adversity may be. You can kind of, a lot of hunters are very successful people. I believe that, and I might be biased just because I'm friends with a lot of hunters, but I believe that to be true.
Yeah, absolutely. Like golf, what a mind trip, man. Like you are in your head the whole time playing that game. And you say you can't master it, but I think you've done a pretty good job. Like, you're a heck of a golfer. You're at the highest level. But it's such a mind trip, but really it comes down to like building this mental fortitude, like being able to go through challenging time. Like you have to challenge yourself to grow. And so these challenging times and challenging places you put yourself in, like, the more you can grow as a person. And that's challenging times, whether it comes to business, hunting, golf, whatever it is, and you draw from this. And so like that's the key, is to really, like, you hear athletes talk about it's 90% mental. And, you know, I don't know if I could be a professional basketball player, no matter how
no
tough
way, man.
I am
You're
mentally.
too short. You're too short, Barney.
But I've got the mental side of it, you know, but that's my point, is that everybody points to how important mentality is, and mental fortitude and mental toughness. And really it's everything. And I'm sure, David, you can compare it to your own life, and like leaving Sitka, like taking this leap of faith, moving your family to a different place to really chase happiness. Like, that's a really tough decision and tough move. And I'm sure you can tie this to your backcountry hunting, like a lot of those tough hunts you've been on, the Oregon elk hunts, you know, where you don't see a lot, you don't hear it, but you keep pushing and keep going forward. Like, all these things in life are building this mental fortitude, building these mental calluses that you add layer upon layer upon layer. And what's going to get you to the finish line in everything is your mentality. Like, it's so important. And I attribute a lot of my success professionally, a lot of my success bow hunting. You know, I would say, you know, it's all mental, or at least it's 90%, or I don't know what the percentages are, but a huge part of it is just wrapping your mind around it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I read a quote the other day that said something along the lines of, you don't, something like, adversity always exists. What changes is how you cope with it, or how well you cope with it. And I'm 41, and I definitely deal with adversity better now than I even did a year ago, or 6 months ago, or 10 years ago. It seems like, you know, there's always, every single day, there's some frustration or some challenge. Sometimes it's a big challenge, sometimes it's not. But it seems like as I get older, especially as being somebody that struggled with anxiety in my past, right? And part of anxiety that I had in my case was like this general sense of the world falling apart, right? Like, you're always scared of something catastrophic happening. Like you always have this thing in the bottom of your stomach that something you can't even tell what it is, or you couldn't even describe it. Even that, like, I feel like I've worked through it a lot just by the pure nature of age and the positive stress that I put myself through building businesses, through hunting, through golf, through music. I mean, the music, talk about another thing that, God, if you don't want to be frustrated and embarrassed and humiliated and humbled, don't get into music.
I remember your story, like recording your album so well, dude, and so fresh in my mind, like just being feeling so out of place, even though you're a great musician. But like, I remember you telling that story.
I can't remember where I came into this the other day. I read something else. It's like, you always feel like an imposter. You know, it's almost like because we all are like we have our own insecurities. And even at your level of hunting, Brian, like I bet you there's people that you can get around that you look up to where you kind of feel like, you're like, how did I get here, man? Like this guy's the king and like, I'm great, but man, look at that guy. But even though it may or may not be true, we all, in some sense, are always trying to grow and get better. And there's always somebody better than us. I mean, especially when like you're into archery and you think you're pretty good at it, and Joel Turner's son shows up to shoot, right? Like, or like you just through life, if you're not okay being challenged or like humiliated or embarrassed or like, and you're not comfortable enough in your skin to allow it to push you forward, it seems like it's a pretty frustrating endeavor all around.
You have such a great understanding of just how the human mind works, and like describing it. Like I can so relate to you when we have these in-depth conversations about anxiety, and I do too. And a lot of people, like I have, you know, I'm more secure now. And like you say, we grow as people. We're all on this journey. We get better at it as we go, especially like when we do challenge ourselves and grow from it and learn from it. And I'm also 41. And yeah, I mean, I felt imposter syndrome when I met you, David. I had called Sitka a million different times trying to get clothing from there, trying to be part of the company and bring value to myself and saying, hey, I like to do all these good adventures. Like this, I like to write about it. I like to do this. I like to do that. And not looking for a handout, but looking to bring value and to partner with the company. And you entertained my email and you invited me to the office. And this was years ago, and went there. And when you go there, have imposter syndrome. Like I've had imposter syndrome my whole life in everything I do. And whether that's construction or whether that's hunting or just normal interactions, like I've had it, but I've been able to grow past it and build my own confidence and my, you know, being secure in my own skin. Like you're talking about, like, doing the podcast. I was an imposter when I started. I knew nothing about it. But as I kept doing it, and I've done it for 7 years, over 320 some episodes, like you get better at it. And pretty soon you're a podcast. I'm a podcaster. Like, you know, I was an imposter.
Have you ever seen the movie What About Bob? Do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
When he gets out on the sailboat and he's so bad at it, they tied him to the pole or whatever. I don't know what it's called. And he goes, I'm a sailor. I'm sailing. I'm a sailor. That's how you feel when you start something, anything, or like even when you're in it. I mean, I've been hunting, Brian, since I was 2 years old. Like I grew up I mean, I was really a fortunate kid. I grew up on like 100 acres, and I could walk outside, even crawl outside. Like my dad had me on his back hunting. I've been hunting for 39 years of my life legally. I don't know when I turned 12, but the point of it is, even now, sorry, you cut out. Just want to make sure you came back. Even now, I find myself around people that I still have imposter syndrome, and a thing that I probably know more about in terms of just being around it my whole life than, you know, it's just, I don't think that ever goes away. But I was thinking about this the other day. It's almost like this dude that sits on your shoulder, right? And when you get in those situations where it's kind of touching on some insecurities that you have, they're like, you suck. You're not any good. You're not a podcaster. You don't know how to podcast. Joe Rogan's a podcaster. You're not a podcaster. But you learn how to kind of like, you still hear the dude, but you kind of learn how to put him in his box. And it doesn't scare you as much. You're like, shut up, dude. I know I'm going to be a podcaster though, because what you realize after a few trips around the sun is there's actually not any wizards behind in Oz. There's no wizard behind the curtains. Most of the people that you look up to totally sucked. Almost all of them actually totally sucked at whatever they're doing now for a very, very long time. And at some point they're like, I'm a podcaster now. I have 302 episodes, but they sucked at it. This is the secret that most people think that you just wake up one day and you're Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, like the best podcast in the world right now, he just started bullshitting with his buddies and smoking weed. He didn't think it was a podcast. I bet you if you asked him today, he's like, yeah, I podcast. I guess I have, but he's like, I just have conversations and people find them interesting. But even he would say it sucked forever. And now it's the best in the world. So like if people can get through their head that they're going to have imposter syndrome, they're going to have these insecurities, they're going to feel like a piece of shit. They're going to feel like they don't know what they're doing. But that's everybody. Everybody feels that. And even when you meet the top people, and this is the kind of gross side of everything, right? This is kind of and I can speak mostly to the hunting industry and a little bit in the music industry. When you meet the top people, I'm going to say, there's a good chunk of them that you end up finding out that they're not real either. And they're like tremendously insecure, but they've managed to build a persona that seems perfect and way better than you. But you're like, wait a minute, I'm a better hunter than this guy. What? Whoa, I didn't know this. Or on the music side, sometimes you'll be like, dude, there's 1,000 people more talented than this human. And he's kind of a douchebag, but he just got a break or whatever. So the point is like the sausage is never pretty being made, but you just have to make a decision to make the sausage. And to your point earlier, like if you're passionate about it, it'll pull you through the humility and all the gross things you're going to have to go through. It'll kind of pull you through it. You're like, oh, I don't care. Like I remember when I started playing open mics, it was really embarrassing and it was awful. And I can watch videos of it now and I'm like, oh dude, don't do that. But the funny thing is, Brian, I knew that at the time, but I loved it so much. I did not care. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this and I'm doing it because it scares the shit out of me. And I still try to do that. I was playing a show a couple months ago where I rapped. I've actually done it 5 times now at shows where I rapped. I pick a song and I rapped it a cappella. Nobody behind me, no beat. And it makes me super uncomfortable and I'm probably no good at it. But the crowd loved it. And I told them, I'm like, this scares the shit out of me, but I'm going to put my guitar down and I'm going to stand right here in front of you and I'm going to rap. And people love when you can just admit that I'm doing this, I love it, and I just, as opposed to approaching something like you're going to be the best at it, people just go away from you, People come to you, especially in hunting, they're going to come to you with open arms if you're like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing. I want to kill an elk. I'm coming to Montana this year. I don't want your spots, but any advice you could give me, as opposed to, hey, Brian, you don't know me, but I'm coming to Montana this year. What mountain range do you think is the best? And then do you have a couple specific drainages? Like I've killed a 347, a 182, and a blah, blah, blah. And you start throwing stats at him. Brian's going to be like, dude, you're gross. And I'm not going to give you any information. Or maybe you'll be nice, but in the back of your head, you're like, I'm not telling this guy anything. But do you see what I'm saying?
Crystal clear. The more genuine you are, that you have to drop your ego. You can't walk in there you can't let your male ego and you're like, it's a defense mechanism to make yourself feel like you belong or make you feel like you're cool. But the more honest you can be, like the more honest I could be on the podcast and more genuine and also just like being vulnerable, like telling people, hey, I don't know what I'm doing with this bow or this release. Like, how in the heck do I shoot this thing? Or, whatever the case is, asking questions, letting your ego drop. Like, that's how you grow in life. And the more authentic I can be, the more vulnerable I can be on the podcast, the more people would connect with it. Here, I thought this is my weakness, and I'm the only person that feels this way and can accomplish this, and still have down days or feel this way about myself. But the more honest I could be with it, and then just really working on that positive self-talk, like you were talking about the guy on your shoulder that talks to you and says those negative things, and you put them in a box. It's not like you still don't have those negative thoughts that come up or those negative feelings when you get in those situations, but it's just I've been through it enough times now. Like, I know, like, I just be myself, talk genuinely. Everybody's a person. Like, you just get comfortable in your own skin, but it takes practice. Like, all these things take practice. And man, you seem like you're fearless when you're on the stage and you're playing, like you're so comfortable talking with the crowd and playing your music. And you've been doing it for long enough where you can get up there and you can be comfortable with yourself, and that it's going to work out. You're going to make it happen. And saying, like lately public speaking scares the shit out of me. It's like, but it's something I know, something I'm really passionate about, and I'm going to try to share the information that's helped make me successful. And I go up and I deliver, and it's like, now after doing it a dozen times or 15 times or 20 times, whatever it is, like, you just get more comfortable, and you're like, it's all going to work out. It's all going to be fine. No matter what happens, it's going to be fine. I'll figure it out. And
yeah, it's almost like that. It's that feeling. It doesn't go away. I guess you just learn how to cope with it better. Like I said, I've met top level performers that are playing for like thousands of people. They are all nervous as hell. It's not like their palms aren't sweaty, or they're like not insecure about something, they have all the same problems all of us have, but they've learned how to cope with it, and they've learned how to kind of package it up, and they know how to deal with it. Lampers and I were talking about how he is more comfortable shooting at an animal than he is with 5 guys behind him at a target. And I've hunted with him, and I've seen this, and I have a buddy that's like this. It's kind of rare. You're probably like this too, because you're cold-blooded, but most people freak out on animals and they freak out on targets. But Lampers has this thing in his head. Like, he's just as excited as anybody. Like, he waits all year for like everybody, but he's learned how to cope with the stress and consciously bring his heart rate down and not let that arrow go until it is perfect. He hasn't missed an animal in 10 years. And you might be in the same camp as him, but I'm not. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I don't take a shot unless it's right. And I'm like, that's admirable, right? But that takes control and knowing how to cope with those emotions. It's no different than any other endeavor, it seems like.
That's exactly right. And I think I'm almost at a detriment. I think I get more excited than everybody else out there. But you do just figure it out. Like you say, you build techniques, you learn how to cope with it, you learn how to deliver, and put myself in those high shooting situations where I do have 5 guys standing behind me, where I do have lines like that. Those high pressure shooting helps prepare me for that moment. And then it's like a conscious decision that I'm going to make a good shot or no matter what. And I'm not quite like Lampers. It seems like I get a miss under my belt every season. Like, I'll just have something that there's so many variables that go along in there. So that's really incrable. And,
I told Lampers we're going to take care of this, and we're going to take him access deer hunting, and we're going to ruin his record.
That is absolutely right. Yeah. Those things, they will get out of the way of an arrow. Yeah, there's no way he could run 100% on those things. I think it's impossible. But yeah, no, that's incredible control. But we've all just learned how to cope with it better. And where Ryan's learned to cope with that, he's also learning how to shoot in front of people better, which has improved his skill set on animals. And speak in front of people.
He's scared shitless to speak. He doesn't even like being on podcasts. I talked to his wife a few days ago on the podcast, and she was saying, like, before all this happened, where he's kind of become popular, he didn't want to talk to anybody. That's actually one of his skill sets is he can be in the mountains for 10 days by himself and he does not miss talking to people. But tell me more about, so you are one of the best archery shots I've ever seen. And that is not easy to come by, right? Like you've had to work hard to get there, but and it was even before all, Joel Turner saved my life, but you've been shooting like this for quite a while. What's that mental game like? And how did you build that? And like, what advice could you give folks that want to improve their shooting or whatever their hobby is? Excuse me. Because I feel like, again, it transfers over. What's your mindset there?
Yeah. So, a lot of the same things we've been talking about. And so since I had such a passion for bow hunting, like a major pillar of being a good bow hunter is being a good shot. And I think a lot of it is dropping my ego, going into the shop and asking questions, asking guys that were more knowledgeable than me, like diving deep down the rabbit hole and not only shooting, but of the bow and how it works and learning how to tune and set up my own bow, like just really going down the rabbit hole, learning absolutely everything I can about archery and learning from other people too, like really asking questions to really good, really smart shooters, to go into tournaments and talking to tournament shooters and indoor, outdoor 3D. Like I just love archery. And so like a lot of it has just been my passion for it, being able to drop my ego and being able to learn. And then as I go into archery and I go into technique, like always being willing to make a change and a change for the better. Like a lot of these changes are really difficult on us. Like they're difficult on us mentally. But once you believe that this is the correct path and it's going to make me a better overall shooter, once I implement this into my game, I get a little bit worse. Maybe my scores go down, maybe my shooting, my confidence goes down, but I know if I keep with this, I'll be better than I was before. I'll hit a new plateau in my shooting. And so like constantly trying to push my limits and hit these new plateaus. And then I work at it. I work at it 365. I am shooting my bow every single day, trying to be the best archer I can be.
When you go out and shoot your bow, what's that look like?
It's usually not a ton of arrows. I do have longer sessions, but usually it's a dozen to 20 arrows that are all controlled, perfect execution, as good as shots as I can make. Yeah. So,
and are those like, tell me, like what distance are we at? Are you one of those guys that you practice long range so the short range is easier? Or are you going out and shooting a dozen arrows at 40, 35 yards just to get the muscles working?
Yeah, so I do, like, the first stage of my bow is to get my bow shooting really well. And so I really work on the tuning, the arrows, the forgiveness. I'll even creep tune. I make a bunch of different adjustments to my bow, shooting straight on my feet, shooting targets, usually around that 40 to 60 mark, in and through there, really dialing in my bow, dialing in my sight tapes then, which is, all the way from 30 yards out to deep 120, or, to make sure my sight tape is absolutely perfect. And then once I get my bow dialed in, I move into like the next phase of my practice. And the next phase of my practice is real world situations. So it's running back and forth from that target. It's standing on one leg and putting my toe on that leg. It's shooting off my knees. It's going to shoot angles. And so really trying to put myself in these hunting situations, and then really putting priority on my first arrow. Always shooting broadheads, as they don't fly the same as field points. So there's always broadheads in my group. And I'm going out and I'm really trying to make that first arrow count, like on my target. And when I go through, I don't go into autopilot. Like I really think about my shot. I have these stages, and for me to make a good shot, I have to execute. And for me, executing is not having my trigger or my pin find that animal and going, now and making it happen. It's putting that pin on that animal, letting it float as I pull, and that shot breaks and it hits in the center. So me knowing that, it's a conscious decision for me to pull. So the whole time, like when I draw my bow, I'm thinking I'm going to execute correctly. And when I get back, I've almost got to get a hold of myself before my mind will just let me shoot. So I have like this saying, you know, where I draw back, and then the first thing I say in my own head is I align everything, or Jesus, I can't even think of my own shot process right now, but basically get in the peep, I line everything up, and then I put the pin where I want to. And I actually tell myself, put the pin where you want it, put the pin in the middle. And I say, here we go. And once I say, here we go, I start to pull. And right from there, it's here we go, pull until that shot breaks. So it's really being conscious in my shot and being able to walk myself through that shot. And that is a lot of like what you said, Joel Turner teaches too. Like I've listened to him talk, and it's really that conscious decision to make a good shot and not going on autopilot. But that's kind of what my practice looks like building up to season. Priority on first arrow, priority on broadheads, shooting from my knees, elevated heart rate, and then distances, usually like I'm just in that 40 to 70 where I really want to make a kill shot. And then there'll be days where I'll do long range practice where I don't have much wind. Also a lot of days with short range practice. Anytime it's dark and I haven't shot my bow, I've got my target out at 20 yards and I'm trying to hold my pin in the middle. And really all winter, I do a lot of indoor practice, and that indoor practice really helps with my aim, and it's never over 20 yards.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you've clearly come as close to mastering it as humanly possible. I'm sure you have room for growth, but you're pretty impressive shot, man. Every year at the Western Hunting Summit, we have this Beat Barney competition, and have you ever been beaten there?
Yeah, I this year in one of the summits I was beat. Was
that Bodie?
No, I beat Bodie. No, it was another kid from the summit, and we got back. It's one arrow in an 8-inch kill, 10 yards, and then you get to scoot back. And he beat me at 130 yards. I hit low, and he got in the middle, and so I have lost one now. Well, but yeah, I love it. It's high pressure shooting. Again, it's like I use it for my own personal growth, so I like to do it and put that pressure on myself. But yeah, thanks so much, man. I've really worked hard at my craft and becoming as good as I can get at it.
What's your goal with your life? Like, you're 41, you're still young. What do you want 10 years from now?
Man, it's still the same. It's still, I'm still driven and love bow hunting adventure. And so for me, it's to go on as many adventures as I can go on and fit in. And so, yeah, my life in 10 years, hopefully it looks real similar to my life right now, maybe a little bit less work, a little bit more financially secure because I'm 10 years down the road. So just keep working on those things slowly but surely. But for me, it's more time. It's more bow hunting adventures. There's just so much more I want to go experience and do. And that's when I'm really happy. And that also like included with that is just quality time with my family. Like every year we try to do a big family vacation, and we usually fit a couple vacations in. And so, that's also spending quality time with my family and friends as well. But for me, it looks real similar to the way it is right now, maybe just a little bit less work and, a little bit more freedom, but that's about it.
Would you consider yourself a trophy hunter? Or like, what's your goal when you go out?
And the funnest thing for me is to get stocks, to get plays, to get chances. Like I love that. And sure, I love big critters. But I also I love bow hunting in the stock, I think is my real driving factor. And so I do set personal goals, and I be happy with and what I won't. And really the last 5, 6, 7 years, like I haven't shot one animal that that I didn't like. Once I make up my mind, or he's got the right look, or he's the mature enough animal, like I am happy chasing that. And I'm happy chasing 150 and 160 inch mule deer till the day I die. Like I love hunting those things. Like they're just fun for me. They get me excited. And so my goal is not always a 200-inch muley. So like I am a trophy hunter. I do like the impressive racks, and I do like setting my goals to mature animals. And that's what gets me excited in the woods. But, you know, I also, wild game is all me and my family eat. And I take a lot of pride in taking really good care of all that meat, whether it's elk or mule deer or antelope. That's what we live off of all winter long. And so like the meat's really important to me. The only reason I can set goals is because I've built my skill set to a point where I know I won't starve to death with my bow and arrow. Like I know I can get some critters down, and I'm going to have meat in the freezer. So the meat's important to me for sure, but I like to chase mature critters. It's what gets me excited. I like the challenge of it. It's good for the overall herd, and just what I found that I love to do. But I love the stock, man. If I can get a stock on a hunt, even if I had to drive 1,000 miles across the country, but I find myself inside 100 yards and I'm creeping in and got to watch every pebble under my foot and can see that animal in front of me, and it's my target animal, whatever the size is, the animal that I've decided I am happy with. Like those are those adrenaline filled moments that I just go, this is worth the price of admission. This is worth training all year. This is worth taking off work, driving across the country for this excitement, this thrill right here. Like that's what gets me going.
Yeah, it's interesting. Hunting is one of those things where most of the people that have the same answer of you as you, which is you're a trophy hunter, but, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like you're more of a trophy hunter, not necessarily for your ego or for shiny pictures on Instagram, but you're a trophy hunter because that's the challenge that you can keep pushing yourself. It's like, can I go into this mountain range that is over the counter and take a mature buck with my bow on public land? Like that's a challenge, and that's an adventure. Even more importantly, that's going to lead you to some wild places. I already know I can probably kill an average buck. If I get a great stock on an okay buck and it excites me, I'm going to do it. But I want the adventure of like walking out of here with just like a 8-year-old old crusty buck that made it that many seasons. Like that's, so my point is I've thought about this a lot too, is it's not so much that you want like the rack on Instagram or in your office, although the memories of having mounts, I can argue are totally worth it. But it's more, you push yourself, like you already know you can, you've worked hard enough at this for so long. You already know that you're past the crux of just taking something, right? You can go kill a deer or an elk. Like you said, I can go out and get meat if I need to. And I eat the meat, but I know that if I have enough time, I can also challenge myself in this other way, which is a really cool stock on an animal that is really, really difficult to get and not many people even see. Like that is exciting, and that's what gets your blood pumping. I think oftentimes people, and there are people that are pure trophy hunters that they're driven by the score and the inches and all those things. But there's more people that are trophy hunters, but it's not necessarily the inches they're driven by. They're interested in it because it's the harder thing for them to do, which is challenging.
That's a good analysis of it. Yeah, I hadn't sat down and really thought about that or classified it, but that's a really good description. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, it is. I'm in love with the challenge of it, and a lot of times I'll hunt smaller bucks for a better experience. I killed a 210-inch deer in Utah in a spot, and I saw other great big bucks in there, and I figured out how to hunt this spot, but the spot was high pressure. It was a backcountry wilderness spot that I had to go, 8-10 miles deep into this country, but I was seeing guys every day, and it was high pressure, and the deer had moved down to secondary living. And I had scouted this buck, hunted him for 7 days. I saw him twice. Second time I saw him, slid down the cliffs and put a good arrow into him, and he's my biggest buck to date. I've never been back to that spot because I didn't get the experience I was looking for. It was too high pressure, it was too much a combat bow hunting. I'd rather go find a spot where I can have this wild adventure where I never see a human being. Like this year in Nevada, I went 7 days, never saw another hunter, had the whole mountain range to myself, arrowed a really good 160-inch buck towards the end of the hunt. I was absolutely elated. Like it took me to my limits. Like it's a really tough mountain range, put on a bunch of miles, a bunch of exertion. I had stocks that didn't work out. And some of the stocks were just like the most monstrous stocks where you're sitting across this drainage where you got to go lose 2,000, gain 2,000, you're not even sure if the buck's going to be in the same county by the time you get there, but just all in. Like I trained too hard to not give it my all or to make an excuse. I'm just going to give it a chance. If I can get over there, like maybe I can stock in on this buck, and ended up killing one towards the end of the hunt. That's what I love, the adventure, And so sure, I'm looking for a mature animal, but I could go back to that place in Utah that I had dialed in that had a bunch of giant bucks in there, but it just wasn't an enjoyable experience. So definitely chasing the adventure of it all, hunting different species and different habitats, different challenges. And then once you get there, it's playing the chess game. Like creative thinking is rewarded in backcountry bow hunting. Like you're always theorizing and coming up with your next move, whether that's to find the animal or to get in range of it. And when I'm immersed in that, I don't think about much else. And I like that distraction and that challenge. And so that's what I'm looking for, is the next great place to hunt. And what I love about hunting is when I get into that epic hunting. So if I'm hunting bulls and I get into one of those rut fests where I hear 300 bugles that night and there's big 6 points cranking around everywhere and I'm in them and maybe I don't even kill one. But to me, that's the ultimate. Or high country buck hunting where I get, maybe I get 3, 4, 5 stalks and I'm making it happen and it's huge country and I'm tired every day, mentally exhausted and physically exhausted, and then can pull it out in the end. Like I love that challenge, and that's like a lot of my love of backcountry bow hunting.
Think about the how lucky you are to have those experiences, and how, because most of the world lives in urban areas, right? And I think about pretty often, like, actually, I remember this vividly. Excuse me. My older brother lives in Los Angeles, and he's more of a city dweller than I am. He is a city dweller, but we get along great. And I remember the first time I went to the Ruby Mountains in Nevada. Before, this is quite a long time ago, and before that, I'd always thought of Nevada as this flat desert, Reno, prostitutes, gambling, Sin City, all these things, all these cliches. And here I drive up to Lamoille or whatever the town is, and you see the rubies for the first time. You're like, oh my God, those are beautiful. I never thought of Nevada having beautiful mountains, and there's more than just the rubies. I'm just using this example. Anyways, long story short, I got back from the trip, and I remember telling my brother about this place. I'm like, I just wish. He's like, Nevada, gross. I don't want to go there. That's like, no. And I'm like, no, you have no idea what you're missing. Like, unbelievable. Like, you get to the top of those mountains, and like it's just a stunning place. And there's obviously thousands and thousands of places like that most people will never get to experience. So I'm going to tell you the same thing that I told Lampers earlier. Write a damn book if you already haven't. Have you written a book?
No, I haven't.
Dude, you need to write a book, bro, because I think we all take it for granted. I'm going to. I think we all take it for granted that we're so lucky to, like, we're in the minority of people that have the freedom, number one, to do the things that we do. But we experience wild things that are going to die with time that most people that don't get to experience. I mean, like my friend Mark Healy, who's a spear fisherman.
He's a great guy.
He was telling me one time, because he loves hunting. He was telling me one time, he's like, dude, you need to come to Hawaii sometime and dive with me and listen to humpback whales talk. I think it was humpbacks. Pretty sure it was. He's like, you think like having 300 bugles in an evening's crazy? He's like, sit on the bottom with me and listen to these whales talking. You want like a primitive. And I was thinking, dude, there's probably like not very many people on earth that have sat at the bottom of the ocean and listened to whales communicating, right? And so then I'm like, that's really cool, and I'm jealous. But also, I've gotten to listen to tens of thousands of bugles in my life. Most people never hear a bugle; they don't know what a bugle is. I just think these primitive experiences we have are such a blessing.
Such a blessing, man. You're spot on. Like that is wild, that experience of listening to humpback whales at the bottom of the ocean. Like that's another experience, man. That's life. And I love these, I love this intersection with like nature and like timing these things. Like they feel like they're magic out there. Like when you get in the elk rut or a muley rut or the axis or at the bottom of the ocean, like everything has to come together to see that epic day. But you get to see things through your eyes that, yeah, man, people dream about. Like to see that epic day at elk hunting, it may take you 10, 15, 20 days to see it. Mm-hmm. But once you see it and you see the magic, like there's nothing like it. It's almost like being a thrill seeker. Like when I hook a good brown trout, you know, or see it, like it's this intersection of nature and our human experience. And that to me is like the most special thing. It can't be recreated. It's not riding a roller coaster. It's not seeing a skyscraper. It's like seeing this rare occurrence and you're there to take part in it, you know, and it's really difficult and challenging. And I think that's why I like it, but it is like finding that magic in the woods, you know, that's the fun part for me.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. It's something that's fleeting too. Like you get in those specifically with elk, you get in those bugle fests and you're like, I don't know, almost every time I make this mistake, you're like, oh my God, this is so amazing. This basin's going to be lit up like this all week. And then and it seems like you just get a couple of those a season, like where it's like, I mean, unless you're hunting like an amazing ranch where just about, you know, they can be more frequent on those really, really good ranches, which I have nothing against. I've hunted them and love to hunt them. But if like for most of us, you're going to get, if you're a lucky hunter, you're going to get those bugle fests you're describing a couple times a year. And you're going to have, you know, interactions with elk the rest of the season, maybe that today was a quiet day, but you still called one in or you bumped into a herd or whatever. But those true rut fests that like, you're like, oh my God, that blew my face off. Those don't come around every day.
No, I wasn't, I hunted elk 20 some days last year, like 21 or 20 days right in there. I didn't make it into range of a bull I wanted to shoot, like in bow range, until I finally hit one of those rut fests. And I hit one of those rut fests with the most insane elk hunting. And we had just had all these snowstorms that came in and it pushed these elk to a certain area in this mountain. And I showed up there on that exact same day, only one in the mountains, 1.5 feet of snow, and elk losing their mind, and more shooter bulls that I could shoot in a lifetime. Like it was so many good bulls. And so I just started playing the game. Like I was in it. Like that's what I live for, those moments, right? Like that, and ended up arrowing this great bull. It was the first bull I fired an arrow at, the first bull I was in range of, like the first good encounter, good chance I had. And I'd played the game with the other elk and seen elk the entire season, but that was the first one I was in range of.
Do you know what we should do more when we're in those situations? I think we make this mistake, and I've only done it one time and I lost it. We should turn our damn audio recorder on and just put it in our pocket. And I know that's like, because I miss, like when those days are over, you're like, God, I wonder how many bugles I heard today. It was hundreds. It could have been thousands. I remember one day, and this was on private, but I remember this is going to sound ridiculous, but it was a very special place. There was 1,000 elk in this basin, and there was at least 200 bulls bugling. And I turned on my audio recorder, and I have it somewhere. I got to find it. It's on an old phone. It is the most insane thing you've ever heard. People like, yeah, right, 200 bulls. This is not a lie. This is the craziest elk experience of it. I mean, it sounded like it actually could have got dangerous in a couple situations. I mean, there's fighting and trees falling, and like, it was the most insane rut fest I've ever been in. And I've been in some pretty insane rut fests, but man, that fuels you for years, and you crave that. Actually, last year I had my worst bugle year ever, mostly because if you hunt Roosevelts like I do, They do bugle, but they do not bugle like Rocky Mountain elk. I don't care what anybody tries to tell me. They don't. They bugle like them, literally, like they sound like them, but they don't bugle as frequently, and they're much more susceptible to conditions. They shut up easier. They're just a little bit more timid. You can get them to bugle, but last year, I think I heard, because I hunted Roosevelts. I never hunted Rocky Mountain elk last year because I didn't draw any tags, and I killed a Roosevelt. But I think I heard like 5 bugles. And at the end of the season, I killed a bull, and we had a good time. But like I told my hunting buddy, I'm not fulfilled. Like I don't feel like that was a great season. And I was successful. I killed one. Like it was great, whatever. But you know why? I never got in a rut fest. Like the year before that, it seems like I couldn't go anywhere without getting in a rut fest. But last year is just one of those years, and I really, it's still to this day, like it doesn't piss me off, but I'm like I lost a whole year of my life without filling my cup with bugles. Like I don't even care if I'm not the one with the tag. I just need to have a couple of those days to fuel me for the rest of the year. So this year, I've been a lot more aggressive on where I'm applying and like making sure that I get away from the coast and get to the Rocky Mountains where I can get some more bugles in my cup.
Man, that's really cool. Yeah, that rut fest that you talked about that you got into, that one sounds insane. And yeah, they are like magic, and every once in a while you hit it right. And if you grind long enough, you just find that. You find that you're hunting antelope or you're hunting deer or you're fishing for browns or hunting bulls. Like eventually you just run into what you're looking for. You run into that good day or that good opportunity. And so like once you learn that payoff, then you're willing to do whatever it takes to create that again. Like you feel that magic, and it's one of the most exciting, thrilling days you have. And so then when the next season comes around, or even in the same season, you just want to recreate that. And so you're willing to do whatever it takes to find that again, to find that basin full of elk, to locate that bull. And one bugle can lead to more bugles, can be that epic day. And so it is a bit of being a gambler, but once you hit that payoff, you're willing to do whatever it takes to go create that experience again, you know?
You're willing to pay a lot of slow days forward to get those days, man.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Brian, how can people find more out or see all your stuff, your podcast, follow you on social? How can people find you?
Yeah, so Eastmans Elevated is the podcast, Brian_Barney on Instagram. And then, catch some videos on Eastmans or articles in there. And that's about it.
Dude, you're an amazing person. I appreciate you as a friend. And I always learn something from you every time we talk. And I hope we can have an adventure together sometime soon.
Yeah, likewise, man. We got to put an adventure together. I know we've been talking about it, so we'll get something in the books. Thanks so much, man. I always really enjoy our conversations.
Yeah, dude, let's do it again. And I'm looking forward to, I don't know when I'll see you out in Montana in June, probably.
Yep. Perfect.
Okay. All right.